4 and 2. We will give you our version of 4 and 2. 4 gears of racing coverage and 2 Bobs. Bob Bianchi and Bob Bardis. They are the drivers of the number 1590 WSMN sponsored race team, giving you all the NASCAR information that you need to keep you on track and taking the green flag to the checkered flag. And now here's your hosts, Bob Bianchi and Bob Bardis.
Sit down, buckle up, and let's go racing. Mr. Bianchi and I are broadcasting live from Allen Mello Dodge here on Wednesday afternoon, September the 2nd. It's a little rainy outside, and we got playoffs. Playoffs! We're gonna recap what transpired at the regular season last race of the regular season at Daytona. We've got an Xfinity race, Cup race at Daytona. The trucks were over at Gateway. The ARCA race also was underway this past weekend, and we have now determined the top 16 drivers running for not the Monster Energy.
They're driving. They're not running.
They're running. They're in the running. They're in contention. He's challenging me right out of the gate. This is like going into turn one, lap one. Yeah.
Well, we got a big race coming up this weekend, right?
Yeah,
a horsey race? Don't we have a horsey race this weekend?
We have quite a week. You and I have NASCAR today for the next 2 hours, and if you go to WSMN.live, you will be able to see the link and see us here live in the
yes, you can
showroom.
see the link. Unfortunately, it won't play on the site yet.
But you don't have to go to YouTube. You don't have to go to that fake book. You don't have to do any of that.
Oh, actually,
if you go to
it will
WSMN,
take you to YouTube.
it will take you. So if you go to WSMN.live, if you just want to listen. If you want to see us, click the little play button icon.
Listening is a skill.
Yeah.
that most people don't have.
And you'll see us here live in the showroom. Jeep Cherokee's behind us. The cam is up. Our die casts are out on the table. A little bit of throwback scheme to talk about because we are headed to the Lady in Black, the track too tough to tame, Darlington, South Carolina this weekend for the Xfinity truck and the Cup race. We will recap everything that transpired at Daytona, and we'll talk about a little bit of other NASCAR news that we will get to in the next 2 hours, including Eric Almirola extends his contract with Stewart-Haas Racing, and Smithfield has signed on as a sponsor. We are still waiting to hear about Clint Boyer in the number 14 at that organization. We have not heard about the 42 or the 43, Chip Ganassi Racing or Richard Petty Motorsports. William Byron also not only got the win this past weekend for the first time ever in his career, he also signed a contract extension with Hendrick Motorsports. That contract was back on August 8th. It is not a culmination of him going to victory lane this weekend and suddenly being rewarded with a new contract. It was inked last month, and they were waiting for the appropriate time to unveil that contract, not the terms thereof, but the contract itself. And why not do it on Monday after Victory Lane celebration over the weekend? NASCAR President Steve Phelps gave a press conference this week. We got plenty to talk about that. Trevor Bayne will be back in the truck race this coming weekend, first time since 2018. And we have plenty of racing Saturday with the Xfinity prior to the Kentucky Derby. Sunday afternoon trucks. Sunday night will be the Cup race. And typically Mr. Bianchi and I will be on saddles to give a Kentucky Derby preview show. That's not happening this year because tomorrow, on Thursday, September 3rd, we will be over at Axe Play in Hudson, New Hampshire on 142 Lowell Road to throw axes. The Bob's Racing Report has been challenged by Team George. Team George consists of George and only George.
Well, Team George also consists of being there every afternoon for the last 2 weeks, so that he has a little advantage, I think.
Do you think?
I think so.
Okay.
Just maybe.
All right. right. Well,
But-
we'll deal with that. We don't need no stinking practice.
Who needs some stinking practice,
Yep.
eh?
Trisha and Mrs. Bianchi will be fielding
We hope.
Team Girl Power. Holly VB from Milford has texted in. She's interested. Mrs. Shepard has said she is interested in joining Team Girl Power. And I sent an invite out to Toyota Jeff and Idina, and I got the usual, sounds like fun. That doesn't say you're coming or you're going. So
Yeah.
I'm outing her on the radio.
We just don't know.
Yeah, but
Well-
we will be over at Axe Play. You can find that on your Facebook and on their website, axe-play.com. And this is Hudson Police Officer Matt Keller, who has retired within the last couple of hours, I think, officially. And started. And he
You
started
generally
the business.
retire the last day of the month, but
That's why I said. So here we
Right.
are on the
Yeah,
second.
we're on
That's a
the
couple
second, yeah.
hours ago.
yeah, a few, less than 100.
So we'll see. We'll be over at his facility tomorrow from 4 to 7. So no SOB show tomorrow. No Bob's Heavy
Well, there
Metal
could be.
music. Yeah, well, that could be. Yeah, right. But my
Somebody getting called that. Never
yes,
mind. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
But
yeah.
the Shepherd Osborne Bardis show will be on the road, and Mr. Bianchi and I will be broadcasting live from 4 to 7. And we will kind of rotate through our mics accordingly so that we can throw. Whether that we hand off to Shepard, Osborne, George, or yet to be determined
You just
player
never
in the
know.
trade, you never know. But it'll be a fun time. We'll have the camera up, so stay tuned at WSMN.live to see that.
So the funny thing about when they call this axe throwing, but really they're hatchets. Okay, something with a short handle and a small head on it is a hatchet. I'm picking on my wife because she's not listening right now. So I don't know how this came up. I have no idea. And I guess we were watching something on TV, and I said, well, in the fire service, we can get into that. Oh, yeah, you'd use your hatchet. No, firefighters don't use hatchets for the most part. No, we use it. It's an axe.
Campers
Use a hatchet, or if you're cutting kindling wood or something, or splitting kindling wood, you use a hatchet. It's a small, short-handled, relatively small-headed. It's an axe, but the terminology when you say axe and hatchet to me is totally different. So when you're throwing this short-handled little device, to me, it's hatchet throwing, but axe throwing sounds better. Mm-hmm. It's shorter. It's less letters on your masthead for your signage and whatnot, so it costs less. See? I know all the tricks here, but yes. So last night I talked to her that Thursday is the event
Official
here.
throw.
So obviously got to figure out work things there, and I says, yeah, we're all going to be throwing our little fire hatchets, which was kind of funny, but yes, firefighters use axes and Halligan bars and other tools of destruction.
We will get that bullseye one way or the other.
Yes, they haven't made a door yet that we
Yep.
couldn't get through. Mm-hmm.
So, and I've extended a invite out to Chief Rhodes and direct and indirect through him to the Buxton brothers, and we'll see if anybody at Nashua Fire, Hudson Fire wants to partake in the radio show games of axe throwing at Axe Play tomorrow
Sure,
afternoon.
old Chief Buxton, he's right there in Hudson, just down the street. He should partake in that. Yes, be a long time. I haven't seen Robbie Buck in a long time. A long time. He was the impetus for me leaving Hudson Fire. He was. Yeah, he
Okay.
came up to me one day. Hey, Lieutenant. Okay, I'll just follow.
But
yep.
we'll see. We got I think probably a good conglomerate of police department officers tomorrow. Probably some fire department guys, and away we go. We'll be keeping score.
Have you done any online lessons or anything?
Zero.
You
Nothing.
haven't? No, I've at least
because part of what Matt Keller was saying, the owner
Yep.
of the business, came in with George and I a couple of weeks back, and he
Right.
said they have axstructors
Yep.
instead of instructors.
Sure.
They have
Yeah.
axstructors. So I'm going to take it from I'm no different than John Q. Public that walks through the door. I'm going to set up the radio equipment, walk back out the door, and then walk in as a brand new patron and said, what do I need to know? I need the quick little tutorial, and I'll get a handful of throws, and then let's start counting points. And when we beat Team George, then he will know that we did it without practice, without tutorials, without any type of assistance, and his 40 hours of practice will serve as, second place. Or maybe he's still going to beat Team Girl Power.
I think he might be able to.
I don't know. Don't. Some of the ringers that might show up
yeah,
tomorrow.
well, that's true. Yeah, there might be one or two.
Mm-hmm.
My wife's very good at shooting a pistol. She's very good at that. Her
And Matt said this can be very similar to throwing darts. That you can, if you're right-handed and you're throwing a dart, it's right foot forward, and you're throwing with the bend in your right elbow.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you're pitching a baseball. It's not overhand. It's not anything.
Well, it depends. I
depends
found
on
that
what
there
you
was several
throw,
different methods. There's you can underhand throw, you can overhand, double overhand. There's a side throw. There's all kinds of different throws.
You know what I'm going to work on then? I'm going to work on like the women's collegiate softball pitch.
Ooh,
the big windmill wind up in the underhand. Boom!
Put the thing right through the wall. So, okay, so I've been practicing in the basement. The dog no longer has a tail. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding, all you doggy lovers out there. No, Rosie is quite fine. No, I have a very nice Estwing hammer, but I noticed it's a steel shank, and I've noticed a lot of the throwing axes are wood handled. They're kind of rather light in the handle department, so that the head carries the axe, and there's not a lot of rotation in the throw. And what is it? 10 feet? I can't remember. It's about 10 or 12 feet.
I'll learn tomorrow.
You'll learn tomorrow. It seems that you've got to let it do the work for you. You don't really have to throw it all that much. If you remember your basic physics in high school, which I'm sure you
liberal arts kid right here. Liberal arts kid right here. Yep.
So, anyways, but
and remember, 4 out of 3 people struggle with math.
That is true. Yeah, it is. It's a proven fact. Yep. It's a proven fact. Yeah. There's a lot of people struggled with math this weekend because they couldn't figure out who was where and who was doing what.
Oh, and you can ramp me up on any of that when we get into qualifying. But go ahead. You continue on your where you were going with your.
Normally you have some numerology for me, and there is an incredible one out there that I'm not sure if you know, and it has to do with young William Byron and Jeff Gordon. Do you know the connection there?
They both drive the 24.
They are the only
guys
to ever win the 24.
And win in the 24. Yep. And part of the numerology is that is not the 98th race that William Byron ran in, and everybody was saying after the domination he had in the Truck Series and in the Xfinity Series coming up that he was going to win 36 out of 36 races in his rookie season. And
Christopher Bellitis, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
And then everyone was, when is this kid going to win? When's this going to get? And then all of a sudden it became Chase Elliott comes into play. William Byron falls into the shadow. Chase Elliott did not win until his 99th race. So William Byron actually got to victory lane faster than Chase Elliott.
And we also have to remember, William Byron stepped into the number 5 car.
The old Casey Kane.
And that number 5 car has not run well probably since Casey's very early career with Hendrick and with Mark Martin. Because remember, Mark Martin was pretty successful in that car.
Following Terry Labonte's stint in the number 5 car.
And
not to be confused with the 25 that Ricky Craven. You want to go down this road?
If you want to play the numbers, you want to go way back now. Well, we have to remember that.
Well, it is throwback weekend at Darlington.
Yeah. The actual 24 car, and why does this all matter? It's just a number on a car. Well, you're talking about the whole team as a whole, and it's the same thing that happened at Penske. Penske did not move teams; they moved drivers and car numbers. That's all it changed over at Penske. And in a sense, that's a little bit what happened at Hendrick Motorsports when Chase Elliott, the 24 car suddenly became the 9 car. But that's always been the 24 car. And then the 5 car became the 24 car. So it was a little bit of a shell game. So when we talk about William Byron, well, he didn't really produce for so long. But when he did, of course, remember, if you happen to be watching on YouTube, then you'll see the Exalta car, and we saw that car win at Daytona in February, which seems like a lifetime ago. But I just got that in the mail on Monday or Tuesday, and this was when he won the duels. Was it the duels? Yeah, the duels that set the starting lineup. So now
Or if we're staying in the throwback mode, the twin 125s.
The twin 125s.
The Gatorade twin 125s if you want to go back.
That's going way back. And if you need to aid a Gator, then you can Gatorade.
Mm-hmm.
So now we fast forward to last weekend. William Byron wins the race, and the age difference between Jeff Gordon's first win and William Byron's first win is 24 days. How spooky. Ooh. And the race ended, around 11? I can't remember what the time was, but William's birthday was on Saturday, and he won on Sunday. And if the race had taken maybe an hour or 2 hours, then it would have been 25 days different. But yeah, see? You know what it was? It was the hand of Dale Earnhardt coming out of the sky, pushing his car to the victory. That's what it was. Just like when he came out of the sky and saved Dale Jr. from the burning Corvette at the road course, wherever he was. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Because I heard it on the internet.
Yeah.
If it's on the internet, it's got to be true if it's on the internet. I read that's a direct quote from Abraham Lincoln. I know that. Yeah. Or something like that. So yeah, that's a little bit of the numerology there.
All right. Well, so then let's recap a little bit while we're staying on the Cup race. So Daytona ran Saturday night. Was the last race in the regular season. So race 26 of 36. All the pre-race hype and talk during the week was where is the cutoff line going to land with the 16 drivers who become eligible to run for the championship. And I say this each and every year. We have 16 drivers who are eligible. We are not eliminating other drivers and sending them home. We are not reducing the number of cars on the track. And when we talk 3 weeks from now about drivers that are no longer eligible, they are still running on the track for money, for points, and for positioning, but they are no longer eligible to win the championship title and trophy. So based upon your finishing order and the points that you can accumulate through the stages on this past in every race, but in particularly this past weekend, we had to determine who was going to advance. Was it going to be William Byron, Matt DiBenedetto, Jimmy Johnson, a long shot of Eric Jones mathematically was still in, and Clint Boyer was in mathematically after 5 or 10 laps had officially amassed over the Saturday evening race. So Kevin Harvick started on the pole, stage 1 and stage 2 won by Joey Logano. We ended up in overtime, and that's where William Byron got his first career win. In 98 starts, led 27 laps. See, if it was really numerology, he would have led 24 laps, but he led 27. But we're in overtime, so there's an asterisk. That's close. Second place was his teammate, number 9, Chevrolet of Chase Elliott. Third place and fourth place went to teammates at Joe Gibbs Racing, Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex, respectively. And Bubba Wallace got a top 5 finish. And the number 48 of Jimmy Johnson, 7-time champion, fails to advance into the playoffs and to be eligible for the playoffs. So we will not see an 8th-time champion crowned.
No, that
and even if he got in the playoffs, I don't see that. But that seems to have been a lot of the talk this week, that he had a disqualified race car, so he lost all of his points back in the spring, and he also tested positive for COVID, and NASCAR required him to sit out a race, and he earned 0 points. So when we got down to whatever the magic number was at the end, what was it, 5, 6, 7 points, that when we
6 points?
6 points when we look at the final tally, but for this disqualification and but for the COVID, he would have amassed those 6 points and arguably could have, should have, would have been in the playoffs. But that's the road not traveled by Jimmy Johnson.
Okay.
Or us.
A lot of the bullstein that went on this week in the call-ins, a lot of people.
I had to shut off.
An awful lot of people call and it seemed to run a little heavy towards women. Jimmy Johnson should have given
callers.
Yes.
Okay.
Should have been given an exemption because he's retiring and he's a 7-time champion. He should have been allowed in and their reasoning was because of COVID. Because he caught the virus, he couldn't race one race. Now, I don't believe that for a second because you have the standards, and that's what you can't be going off of that. If that was the only thing that caused him to not amass enough points to be in the top 16 or have a win, I could kind of see the logic. But let's go look at, he was disqualified from, which race did he get to? Darlington. No, I'm sorry.
Was it Kentucky, Kansas?
He got disqualified from a race he came in second, and I can't remember which race it is. Right there was 50-some-odd points because he had a good race. There's 50 points right there. He's leading at Indy, coming to the green checkered flag. There's 10 points right there. He spins on his own. He was not hit. He was not touched. Now we're talking 60-some-odd points, okay? Now he had to, Darlington he spun out. At Indy, he got tested positive, which my personal feeling, I think it was a false positive. How can you recover in 4 or 5 days or whatever it was? Now, granted, when you're a multimillionaire, you can have that test done a little bit faster than other people, but still, it's the same way with Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon tests positive on a Thursday, and by Tuesday the next week, he's testing negative. Okay, but that's neither here nor there. The bottom line is, you can't give somebody a waiver because, you had to sit out a race because of COVID. You should, and the other plans were, he's been averaging 30-some-odd points a race. They should have just given him his average for that race that he never ran in. This is just twisted. Okay, folks, I'm a conservative. This is twisted liberal logic that says you should get something that you don't earn. Just because you're a nice person, because you have a hangnail, because you have a wart on your head, it's made you undesirable to other people, or whatever. It's ridiculous. This is professional sports. Thank God for the Patriots. Now, I was not happy that they lost after winning 18 straight games or whatever it was, but them's is the breaks. Okay, now. Thank God they lost that because now you have the best example. Kevin Harvick has won 7 races this year. If he does not win the champions, let's say he wins 2 or 3 more during the playoffs. And we'll talk about this a little later, because of the points that he amassed in the playoff, his playoff piggy bank bucket, he is pretty much guaranteed of going to the championship 4. Remember, when you get to the championship 4, when you get to the Super Bowl, you have to perform. And if you don't, if somebody catches the ball off their helmet, you lose. Period. It's discouraging. It's aggravating when you're a fan, which is short for fanatic. It's infuriating. But those are the rules. That's why we play this game. This isn't T-ball with little kids and stuff, and we don't want anybody to get discouraged. This is big-time, multi-billion-dollar sport that you had 26 races to fall into the category of you either have enough points or you have a win. And to say that, he got the waiver from NASCAR to still compete and try to get into the playoffs, and he didn't, so you should let him in. Well, no, you can't. And a lot of the example that came up, they let Kyle Busch in a few years ago when he won his championship. Kyle Busch had the only exemption that Kyle Busch had, the only exemption that Jimmy Johnson had, the only exemption that Austin Dillon had was you are not disqualified because you did not attempt, and this is the rule, you need to attempt to qualify for every race. And because of injury or illness, they weren't able to do that. And that was mandated by NASCAR, obviously. If you have a broken leg, you're not going, well, they did in the olden days, but you aren't going to.
I was going to comment on that to me, when some of the callers were trying to make the argument of same thing. Well, let's take the average finish, and he's a good guy. We should extend it to 17 for there. And, of course, I'm biting my tongue on a few other drivers that could, should, would have got in that way if we played it along that avenue. The rationale that I at least gave it a couple of minutes of ponderance was the precedent historically, and you would recall, the points went to the driver who started the race.
Correct.
So back in the day, if you had Eddie Poopadoop, who's got the flu, and he gets in the car and he takes the green flag and makes one lap and comes into pit row, parks the car, shuts it off, Eddie Poopadoop gets out, and Joey Flimstram gets in and drives.
Flimstram, he was a really good fill-in driver. He was.
Yes. Yeah. And he runs the next 499 laps. Eddie Poopadoop gets all of the points for that 500 lap. So to me, there was I could at least make a straight-faced argument in court if I had to say Jimmy Johnson could have shown up at the track under that precedent to say, I will social distance, run one lap, get out of the car, put my mask, put my Tyvek shield on, and go get in the decontamination chamber and the hyperbolic chamber and anything else that you want done and leave the track, and a fill-in driver could have run the rest of the race to earn those points. I could see in light, only because it is COVID and it's 2020 and we're basically taking a giant Etch-a-Sketch in the world, shaking it up and down, and we are creating all the new rules, that if someone wanted to make an argument that said Jimmy could or should have would, but medically he was not able to participate, how can we get those points to him? That, to me, could have been at least a platform to make an argument, and in the past they've done that. And what they didn't want to do was have drivers, which they did, with broken wrists, with broken ribs, with broken legs or ankles or whatever illness that they succumb to, getting into the car to make that one lap to register their points and then have a substitute driver take the rest of the race.
But them's is the breaks.
Exactly.
So to speak.
But to me, when you call them and said, well, let's take his average fit, I'm like, nope, next caller. Thanks for playing. He's won 7. We really, really, really would be nice. It'd be a feel-good story because, nope, next caller. But to me, I was like, if you got medically cleared to go into the playoffs because you remember, folks, Jimmy Johnson and Austin Dillon volunteered their test results to NASCAR.
Well, true. They could have.
They could have lied. They could have said we didn't take a test or we tested negative, and because of that, subjected however many other people to whatever. Again, we're down the speculation road, but they could have chose a different path to be less than candid or less than credible. And in this case, it happened to bite Jimmy. So if you want to make a feel-good story argument that said if he's candid leaving, then whoever Team Hendrick picks to drive the 48, i.e. it was Justin Allgaier for that particular race, and Justin Allgaier crashed, I think, 5-10 laps into the race.
Almost immediately. He got crashed. It wasn't his doing, but yes.
But if we just said, if NASCAR said, we want you to be candid. We want you to let us know if you test positive. And if you test positive, your substitute driver's points will be added on to your points, provided this, that, and the other thing. We could have gone down that road, so Allgaier's points for that particular race then could have been applied to Jimmy Johnson's overall score for the 2020 season to see if, in fact, that would have made a difference or not. I'm not sure if it would. So Allgaier,
he ended up finished 37th, and doesn't seem right. 17. No, what's that number? Oh, that's the number of laps he ran. Yeah, he got 17 laps out of it,
and finished.
He was
37.
He was 37th,
so he would have got 3 points.
Right.
It would not have mattered. But to me, my point in making that argument is.
Oh, I see your point. Yeah.
So let me ask, and I haven't really thought this through. It just came to me. What happens now Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin, in my hypothetical, folks, they have not tested positive. In my hypothetical, they test positive in a week and they can't run. They don't get to run one of the playoff races.
They will still get the waiver
that they're eligible for the championship.
That they're eligible to keep going.
And they have to use their points to remain in the playoffs.
Oh, well, but that's
right.
But that's the point. But when you look at Harvick, and that's, we'll talk about the
they have
playoff points.
They have enough that they basically have amassed one race worth of points.
Sure.
Because of their number of wins. But if you look at somebody here that now is only 3 or 4 or 5 points into
absolutely.
the playoffs, if they test positive and they miss a race, they're not advancing.
No. But let's take this one step further, and somebody called in today. What happens the week before Phoenix? And this gentleman's contention was, we have to have 4 people competing for the championship. If Denny Hamlin gets a positive test for COVID,
and he can't run,
well, they should take the 5th place guy and put him in. No, he didn't. No. They did not qualify. Oh, you mean you're only going to have 3 running for the championship? Yep. Yeah, because on lap 2, Denny Hamlin does what Denny Hamlin does and smacks into the wall and totals his car, and he's in the garage, and he finishes 36th.
Them's the brakes.
Yeah, he finished 36. Oh, well. Yep. That's the way. And, of course, now we go into Insanoville. He says, well, what happens if all 4 of them get COVID? Okay, we can go to Bizarro World, I guess.
Wait, do we have theme music for? We need theme music. We're going to Bizarro World.
Yeah, to tell you the truth, I don't know what we would do, what the sanctioning body would do at that point. I have no idea.
That's why they get the big bucks.
But that's why
we report pre and post race.
The bottom line, as Moody says, "If" is the most powerful word in the English language because it makes all things possible.
Yep.
There is a very good chance that one driver might be having to 16? Set out.
Yep.
Well, I'm saying of the championship
four,
just of the championship 4. Final 4 is basketball. You can't use that term.
Yeah. Another sport I don't follow. That's why I don't even know the term.
That's right. Yeah. So, what I was talking about points wise. Yeah. So let's go back to pre-Daytona. And we were all wondering. We were a dither about who was going to make it into the championship, right? So I have the printout here of pre-Daytona where everybody was, and what changed.
Well, no, wait. Now this is not February Daytona 500.
No, this
is a week ago.
This is a week ago
before we run Daytona for the second time in 2020.
Correct.
Really the third time if we count the road course. The second time on the oval. Yep.
At that time, we had 10 winners. We had Eric Almirola, Kyle Busch, and Kurt Busch had amassed enough points that they could not be taken out. They couldn't have been overcome points-wise. We had Clint Boyer in 14th. We had Matt DiBenedetto in 15th. And we had William Byron in 16th. How did we end up? The 3 that were in the yellow boxes all made it. Advanced. And Jimmy Johnson and Eric Jones were on the outside. Jimmy Johnson was 5 out before the race. He was 6 out after the race. He was caught up in that last incident. Now, there's a very good possibility. Again, it goes to the if. If Jimmy hadn't been caught up in that last incident, then he probably would have outpointed Matt DiBenedetto, but that's not the way it went. The way it went is what we see on the screen. And the race, I think, that I had my doubts about Daytona, as unpredictable as it can be, as this is the cutoff race. There's 26 cutoff races. Let's face it. What you do at the beginning part of the season is just as relevant as what you do at the end of the season. So there certainly was a lot of tension in the air. There was a lot of uncertainty. Who was going to go where? Who could win? Because anybody in the top 30 could win and work their way in, those that hadn't won before. Eric Jones was running quite well, could have won. You had Ricky Stenhouse Jr., could have won. Runs pretty good at these plate tracks. Super speedways now. They're not plate tracks
still
anymore.
Plate tracks to me.
Yeah. So you had a lot of variables, and that's what made the race exciting, and that's what gave it that tension. And let's face it, a game at the beginning of the season doesn't have that air of importance as it does at the end of the season, because you've amassed data, i.e. your stats and whatnot, and this is where it all comes to a head. So I think leaving Daytona as the last race of the regular season was pretty neat. Again, there was an air of a lot of people calling and saying, gee, I think we should have a wild card. They should have a wild card in. Daytona's your wild card.
The track itself is the wild card.
Exactly.
Yep.
So this gives a lot of opportunity to a lot of teams that wouldn't normally have the opportunity to win. If you were back at, well, we did Indianapolis last year, and then there's been a few other different tracks, or Darlington was the cutoff race one year. I think those races play right into the hand of those that won already, because those are the guys that are running good. But when you look at some of the lesser funded teams, some of the smaller teams, that these are races they look forward to because they have a chance, because they put a lot of time and effort into the super speedways where you can do that. And I thought it was an excellent race. I was very surprised at the lack of carnage in the first two stages.
Agreed.
But towards the end of the race, what was it, about 15 laps to go when all hell broke loose.
That was the point where I stood up off the couch, legal pad in hand, rocking back and forth, going, I got to make a note of this. I got to watch it. Don't take your eyes off the screen. Just make a note. You can make it legible later.
Yeah, I love the cumulative report, because it really kind of spreads things out for you. And, of course, Joey Logano wins both of the stages. There's the points for the stages are totally irrelevant, but the 2 points to go into his playoff points, very significant. And quite honestly, right up till the end there, I thought he had a good chance of winning until things got a little squirrely.
Yes, they did.
Back and forth. Tyler Reddick is now the Quinn Huff of the Cup Series for a week.
He owned it.
Sure,
right
he
out
did.
of the
He
gate.
came right up and said, "Gee, that's something I shouldn't have done, but I'll learn next time." And
the fellow who likes that the most right now, Ross Chastain, because Ross Chastain, we'll get to the Xfinity recap, was the Tyler Reddick of Saturday's race.
Right, yeah, and
we need something to get the spotlight off of me. Ross
really
Chastain
quick,
is
yeah.
sending a fruit basket to Tyler Reddick as a big thank you.
Probably a watermelon basket. Yes, lots of watermelon.
Again, I'll keep throwing these softball pitches like I'm going to throw axes tomorrow. You keep hitting them.
Of course, the only yellow flags we had up until lap 144 was the competition caution and then the two stages, which I never really call those caution flags. Those are more let's slow down for a while flags. And then
which is technically the definition of
yeah.
You've been hanging around with the lawyers too.
Yeah,
long.
well, I do
It's
have
not
a
really
tendency
a
of doing
caution.
that. It's not really a caution. It's not really a speed limit. It's just kind of a suggestion. Yeah. Of course, we had a minor incident on lap 144 that lasted 3 laps, the 51 and the 62. That was kind of odd. The 51, I think, it was his own doing, and then the 62, I think, was checking up and got hit. And that car was messed up. That thing was just destroyed. And then, of course, on 153, coming around on turn 4, Tyler Reddick had made a really good run on the bottom side and decided, I'm going to go up and jump up to the upper lane. And they always call it blocking. And I don't really call it blocking. I want to get into the faster lane. Mm-hmm. So they'll push me ahead. But I suppose that's kind of trying to block it. When I think of blocking, I think of stopping somebody. I'm going to block them. I'm going to stop them. But I guess in this term, you're stopping their forward progress in a way. But they're actually pushing you along.
Yeah, you're trying to get in front to then have them push you.
You're jumping into the current, folks.
Yeah.
And he was just a wee bit late on that. And we've seen all drivers do that. And I found it a little bit disingenuous that somebody who did the ultimate boo-boo in February, i.e. Ryan Newman, was very critical of Tyler Reddick. You did the same thing in February. Of course, you can't remember the whole day, but that's exactly what you did. You jumped down in front of Ryan Blaney, and
went airborne.
you did. You went fly like an eagle, and then you got hit by Corey LaJoy, and all hell broke loose. And thank goodness he was okay. So that particular...
You
go
know
ahead.
who was not upset? Well, was upset, but not the typical upset? Kyle Busch.
Kyle Busch, yeah.
I couldn't
Yep.
wait to see. So Tyler Reddick is behind Kyle Busch, and Kyle Busch is going to take the lead. Tyler Reddick drops down low, gets pushed from behind. The draft, the slingshot, the call it whatever you want. Tyler Reddick is now ahead of the 18, but in the lower lane. Tyler Reddick slides up in front of the 18, one, thinking he's clear, and two, thinking now that Kyle on his back bumper is going to continue to push the 8. The 18 is going to push the 8 further up the track. Tyler Reddick in the 8 was not clear. The 18 of Kyle Busch checked up, saw him coming and go, and then Kyle Busch wrecks.
Right.
Tyler Reddick continues to drive away from that. Wrecks later, but drives away from that one.
But when Reddick came up, he came up so fast he bounced off the wall. And I give Kyle Busch all credit. He checked up.
Yeah, he saw it coming.
He didn't just push through him. And I think if Tyler had not hit the wall, and obviously anytime you hit the wall, you're not going to be going as fast as you were before you hit the wall. I think that kind of exacerbated the problem. And then, of course, somebody got into the behind of the 18 car, and all this happens. And this is happening at the very front of the field.
At 200 miles an hour.
Right, at a lot of cars going very, very fast. And they're not going to get out of that, except for the three, quote, bubble drivers, unquote, that you had Matt DiBenedetto, William Byron, and Jimmy Johnson all in a conga line, whoop, going right through that whole mess. And it was so interesting to see that on the TV. And you go, holy moly, look at them. They just all went through that mess. Mm-hmm. So
now Kyle Busch goes to the infield care center, comes out, he's checked out, he's fine. And they put a microphone, and I was like, oh, boy, this is going to be good. Kyle's like, it happens.
Yeah, he says,
in so many words,
it's still 2020. It's just been one of those years for him, and it's quite a juxtaposition. He goes into the playoffs this year
without a win,
as few points as on the opposite end of the spectrum as he had last year, because he had 40-some-odd points last year going in, and what made it very clear that this is my insurance policy. And if I hear another media person call it a mulligan, I want to jump in the radio and slap them right upside the head. A mulligan is a do-over. You put another ball on the tee and you hit it again. You don't get a chance to hit it again. Honestly, I think Kyle came up with the perfect explanation of it. It's an insurance policy. Those are your insurance points. And every round, you get them back. So if Kevin Harvick let me see, I got my notes here. So Kevin Harvick right now has 57-point lead on Matt DiBenedetto, who has 2,000. So in the playoffs, all these 16 drivers, their point total gets elevated to 2,000. And then you add their playoff points. Well, Kevin's the leader at the end of the regular season. He gets 15 extra points on top of the 42 he already had, 57 points. Now, what's the maximum you can get during a race? I think it's 60. Yeah, I think it's 60 points, right? You get if you get 10 points for each segment, there's 20, and then if there's 40 cars, is it always 40?
You get an extra 5 for the win.
No. Oh, do you get an extra 5, or do you get 5 in your bonus point? See, I should know all this stuff, but I don't. All I know is you get a crapper load of points, and it's very close. It's a little bit over, but it's very close to 57 points. He almost has a full race. So if he goes out and gets taken out on lap 10 or something, he's got an insurance policy. Of course, if he goes out and wins the first race in the round in that 3-race round,
you automatically
that doesn't matter. You're automatically, and then when you start the next round, boom, he's got 57 points ahead of everybody else. And maybe we should explain a little bit how we're doing. 10 minutes to the hour already. My, doesn't time fly when you're in a showroom with new shiny cars around you. Here at Allen Mello
Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram.
Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. And I have 3 of those, right? No, I don't have a Dodge. You have the Dodge.
I have the Dodge.
I have the Ram and the Jeep part.
Yep.
In the garage.
We can get a Chrysler. That Chrysler 300
I
navy
know.
blue is still
it
sitting
sits
out there.
there, right there. Yeah,
Yep.
I talked to Jimmy last week about it.
Yes, you did.
This is one of the managers down here. That's his car, and Jimmy says, "Well, I'd like you to park that out front so people can see it." He says he always parks it right next to my truck for some reason.
Yeah, interested buyer. That's why. He knows parking it out there, you're just fishing. You're dropping a lobster pot anywhere. Over here, you're walking into the local grocery store with a lobster tank and saying, "I'm going home with somebody," because I know you fish where the fish are.
There's the bait right there.
Isn't that one of your standard
yeah.
Northern New Hampshire colloquialisms? Fish where the fish are?
Fish where the fish is, yes. There's the pescis in the sea, yes. So it's interesting when you look at the 16 drivers made it into the playoffs. And where did they start and where are they now? Of course, the top 3 were Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin, and Brad Keselowski. They are the top 3 now. Then it gets a little interesting. Joey is in the 4th place. He was 5th. Chase Elliott is in the 5th place. He was 7th. Martin Truex was 4th. Now he's 6th. Ryan Blaney was 6th. Now he's 7th. And now some big movers. Alex Bowman was 12th. Now he's 8th. William Byron was 13th. Now he's 9th. I don't know where Cole Custer was. He's got to be down in the teens, upper teens, because my list doesn't go that far to find Cole Custer. Austin Dillon went from 18th to 10th. Eric Almirola went from 8th to 10th.
And these numbers represent
where they are seated, and I can cover that in just a moment. And when you get down, Kyle Busch was 9th in points. Now he's 14th. Kurt Busch was 11th. Now he's 15th. And Matty D was 14th. Now he's 16th. So of those 16 drivers, their points get elevated to 2,000 points. And that is just to separate them from the rest of the field. So they're the only ones that can compete.
NASCAR could pick any number. They could be 5,000 points, 10,000, 1 million points. It's whatever. They're
totally irrelevant.
They're just getting a new threshold number to
and
distinguish those 16 from the rest of the field.
Right, and to keep them that nobody else, Jimmy Johnson right now is in 17th place. He has 1,397 points. He can't reach 2,000.
Right. Even if he wins 10 out of the 10 races in every stage from this day forward,
he cannot
reach that.
Right. He cannot reach that
mathematically.
That plateau. So at the end of 3 races, they'll be elevated to 3,000 points.
Just to make sure mathematically no one catches them.
Right. And 4 drivers will remain at the 2,000 level plus whatever points they've earned in the race. Do they get now? They earn playoff points for 9 races, but I don't know if those playoff points are added to their total score. It must be for those that get eliminated from the play. No, actually, no. If you eliminated from the playoffs, you don't. You just get whatever you earn during the race, i.e., stage points. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 2, 3, 1. Or, no, that's it. And then whatever you earn from when you fight. Where it gets a little complicated is at the end of round 2. Because those 4 drivers that are eliminated go back to the 2,000 plus whatever they earned in the 6 races. So everybody's on a level par all the way up for the championship 4. The rest of the 12 racers are at 2,000 plus the points they earned during those races. That's it.
Remember, liberal arts kid.
I know. It can be a little confusing.
You and I both drink NASCAR Kool-Aid, right? We follow anything and everything there. Literally all I hear when we get to this stage of the season is Charlie Brown's teacher when they start talking about the points amassed here and the recalc, and they elevate to 2, and then we're going to divide by 3 and give them 2 playoff points and a bucket and so. All I hear is wah 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 wah. Just tell me who is eligible, who is not eligible, and let the powers that be NASCAR figure out who finishes where overall for the season and who gets what check. Because if you put a decimal point to it, I'm involved. I'll follow you. But right now, when you're like, we're going to pick some fictitious elevation number, put them in a tier, add some points, but then they're really in pencil because we'll subtract those points at some point in the future. And then once we advance to the next round and we'll do it, I'm like, yeah, I'm out. So right now I know Jimmy Johnson and Eric Jones cannot win the championship. And 16 other guys are eligible. In 3 races from now, I'll tell you 3 people who are no longer eligible, and the remaining.
Yeah, the only suppositions you can make now is probably the top 2, maybe the top 3 have a very good chance. The top 2 definitely have a very good chance, and you can probably pretty much say they'll make it to the championship 4 because they have so many points, unless something very unusual. They do get tested positive for the virus, or they just have some really bad races
and miss 2 consecutive races.
Yeah, I think 2. I think 2 that you'd probably be done with. And then you look at the bottom. Matty D has no points for playoff. He has no playoff points. Kurt Busch has 1 playoff point. Kyle has 3. Clint has 4.
But see, just win a race and you advance. Yeah. Then the points don't even matter.
Well, you're right. And between the 16th place, which is at 2,000 points, and, well, even let's throw in Truex. He has 14. So there's 14-point difference there. That's not a lot of points. And, of course, your cutoff is the 12 will move on to the next round. When you look at those 4 guys and you go a few ahead, there's 6, 7, 8 points difference.
I'll let you know in 3 races who advances.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
This is exactly where I tune out.
Even going into Daytona, and especially our girl Danielle Trotta on the noontime show on Sirius XM radio for the NASCAR channel, she is just so dead set on scenarios. Well, if this happens, that happens, and because you have playoff points, not playoff points, but segment points, because of that, there was no way you could accurately say, well, if this person finishes in position 10, they're going to be in, until after those 2 segments are done. Okay, now we know where everybody sits. And that's the only time you're ever going to make an accurate assessment of these scenarios that they want to come up with. To me, it's let it play out.
This is back in the day when I used to watch stick and ball sports, and they'd start talking at Thanksgiving time. Well, if the following 3 teams win and 2 other teams tie, and then there's the Halley's Comet flies by, and something or other then X team gets into the playoffs. Don't care, just show me the playoff, grid, and we'll deal with that. So anyway, that's where I get to.
Yeah, so you need to
enjoy the racing for the race and let the points will fall where they may.
They will, and I think because fans are fans, short for fanatic, we all want to see, we want to look into the future. We want to see what the future is. Well, I think if anything taught us this year is don't look at the future. It don't look that good. But we can at least watch the racing, enjoy the racing, participate in the racing by watching and enjoying the competition. And obviously we know Darlington is a very tough track.
It's too tough to tame.
Too tough to tame, so we'll have to tame it.
That's where we'll be running this Sunday night under the lights. Also on Sunday will be the truck race, and Saturday afternoon will be the Xfinity race prior to the Kentucky Derby, rescheduled from May now to September. So cross flags are displayed. We are halfway through the Bob's Racing Report here. Mr. Bianchi and myself, Bob Bartis, broadcasting live on Wednesday, September 2nd. At Allen Mello Dodge. We're going to send it back to Art Colvin in the studio at 196 Main Street, Nashua, the home of WSMN. Give you top of the hour news for 5 minutes, and then he'll send it right back here for another hour of the Bob's Racing Report on WSMN 1590 AM, 95.3 FM.
WSMN 1590. WSMN 95.3 FM Nashua. Listen, watch, and stream at WSMN1590.com.
USA Radio News with Tim Berg.
It is my tremendous honor to officially designate Wilmington, North Carolina as our nation's very first World War II heritage city.
President Trump making that declaration in Wilmington, North Carolina on the 75th anniversary of VJ Day. Speaking about 500 miles to the northeast of that in Wilmington, Delaware, former Vice President and Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden took questions for the first time since July 30th and was asked why he's heading to Kenosha on Thursday.
I'm not going to tell Kenosha what they have to do, but we have to do together. I spent my whole life, including in this city you're in right now, bringing people together, bringing the community and police officers together, bringing business leaders and civic leaders together. And so that's my purpose in going.
This is USA Radio News.
Can the daily recommended servings of fruits and vegetables fit into just 6 capsules? Yes. We start by sourcing organically grown whole fruits and vegetables. We ensure they are picked at peak ripeness. All of our produce is third-party tested for pesticides, heavy metals, bad bacteria, and nutrients. They are then washed, cut, and put through an advanced vacuum cold process which removes the water using pressure. This maximizes the nutritional value while preserving the color, smell, and taste of the fruit or vegetable. The freeze-dried food is then ground into a fine powder without adding any additives, fillers, or extracts. These powdered foods are then mixed in our proprietary blends and encapsulated, locking out air and moisture. The capsules are then bottled and shipped directly to our customers. Balance of Nature is now offering 35% off on any new preferred order. Go to balanceofnature.com today and use discount code USA.
Over $8 million has been given in federal assistance to Hurricane Laura victims in Louisiana. Governor John Bel Edwards saying 80,000 people or so have registered for help after the storm blew through the area almost a week ago. John David Wells, host of the Wells Report, heard on many of these same USA Radio Network stations, traveled to Louisiana and talks about how the people are doing in their state.
Well, everybody's shaken. Imagine the worst thunderstorm you can think of.
Right.
And then multiply it by 5 or 10. Laura came to the coast of Louisiana and Texas with 150-mile-an-hour wind.
One of the nation's top infectious disease experts says it's possible there will be a coronavirus vaccine before the November election. Dr. Anthony Fauci saying he will not be satisfied until there is a safe and effective vaccine, and that will likely happen closer to the end of the year. This is USA Radio News.
Now you can fly anywhere in the world and pay discount prices on your airline tickets. Book a flight today to London, Paris, Madrid, or anywhere else you want to go and pay a lot less guaranteed. Call the International Travel Department right now at Low Cost Airlines.
800-215-5141. 800-215-5141. That's 800-215-5141.
20 Republican senators and 71 House Republicans want the Food and Drug Administration to ban a drug known as RU-486. That drug ends pregnancies up to 10 weeks after conception. The number of youth voters in battleground states who say they definitely plan on voting in the November election jumped 77% in August. That's according to a new poll released by the progressive group Next Gen America. The poll found 77% of registered voters aged 18 to 35 across 13 battleground states said they definitely will vote in the upcoming election. That's a 7-point increase from the same poll in July. Today is the 75th anniversary of VJ Day. With more, here's USA Radio Network's Chris Barnes.
75 years ago today, September 2nd, 1945, World War II came to an official end, 6 years and a day after it began, as Japan formally surrendered. General Douglas MacArthur represented the Allies aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay as the papers were signed.
I now invite the representatives of the Emperor of Japan and the Japanese government and the Japanese Imperial General Headquarters to sign the instrument of surrender at the places indicated.
For USA Radio News, I'm Tim Berg.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mark Rosenthal. Here's what's happening for southern New Hampshire. Overnight, any showers will end, but clouds remain. It'll become buggy. Temps mostly in the 60s. Tomorrow, a mixture of sun clouds. It'll be hot, humid. Temps the middle and upper 80s. Could be a late day shower, thunderstorm. Friday, sun clouds. It'll be hot, drier, middle and upper 80s. The weekend is looking good. For WSMN 1590 and WSMN 95.3 FM Nashua, I'm Mark Rosenthal.
Bardis Law has been representing injured people for 20 years. Whether it's car accidents, motorcycle accidents, pedestrian injuries, dog bites, slips and falls, Bob Bardis is an experienced attorney who solves problems. Bardis Law, a statewide personal injury law firm. Their number is 603-880-1300 or bardislaw.com.
NASCAR. It's not just about driving fast and turning left. In the next hour, you will learn about its strategy, sheer determination, sponsorship, and the passion to win. Drivers want 4 tires and 2 cans of gas. 4 and 2. We will give you our version of 4 and 2. 4 gears of racing coverage and 2 Bobs. Bob Bianchi and Bob Bardis. They are the drivers of the number 1590 WSMN sponsored race team, giving you all the NASCAR information that you need to keep you on track and taking the green flag to the checkered flag. And now here's your hosts, Bob Bianchi and Bob Bardis.
Pull those belts tight. We are back racing here at Allen Mello Dodge on Wednesday, September 2nd, 2020. Mr. Bianchi and myself, Bob Bardis, broadcasting live, and today's show will be replayed on Saturday from 8 to 10 in the morning as part of our Sports Talk Saturday. And we're here each and every week to give you the update, the recap, and the preview of everything that happens in the world of NASCAR, and in addition to anything else that might cross our mind in the racing or automotive world. As always, we thank Allen Mello Dodge, SlotCarCorner.com, and the Northeast Motorsports Museum. Last hour, we talked a little bit about the Daytona Cup race, the conclusion of the regular season. The playoffs will start this coming weekend at the Track Too Tough to Tame, Darlington, South Carolina, 1.3-mile egg-shaped track. Will be on tap for all 3 series this weekend, with the Xfinity cars racing on Saturday afternoon. So if you're listening to Saturday's replay, get ready for the Xfinity race that starts early afternoon. Kentucky Derby will be running at the end of Saturday afternoon. Sunday lunchtime will be the trucks, and Sunday night under the lights will be the Cup Series going into Labor Day weekend. So we still have a little bit to talk about with the Xfinity race last weekend and the trucks from last weekend at Gateway. Xfinity was at Daytona Super Speedway, and the trucks were at Gateway in Madison, Illinois. Let's see, a few other headlines. Notwithstanding the win for William Byron this past weekend at Daytona, he has a contract extension which was signed back on August 8th, 2020, and not publicly announced by Hendrick Motorsports until this past week, so it had nothing to do with the win. He was automatically extended. We still need to hear confirmation that Chad Knaus's contract has also been renewed as the crew chief for the number 24. Yet to be announced by Hendrick is what's going to transpire with the 48 team. Chase Elliott's contract is good through 2022 now, along with William Byron's. Alex Bowman's contract is through 2021. Eric Almirola extended his contract with Stewart Haas, along with his sponsorship through Smithfield. So the bacon is
bacon.
Going to continue on the number
bacon.
On the 10 car. This is the 3rd consecutive season that Eric Almirola has entered the playoffs. We have yet to hear about the number 14 and Clint Boyer. Cole Custer's contract went through the conclusion of 2021 anyway, so we won't worry about that. Harvick had previously announced an extension from there, so that concludes the Stewart Haas team. No news on the 42 Chevrolet of Chip Ganassi. Matt Kenseth is currently piloting that race car, and we'll see what transpires for next year. As we know, there's an offer on the table for Bubba Wallace to take the wheel of that number 42, bring his his Columbia Sportswear and McDonald's contract over, but as we know, and as we've learned from weeks ago, Bubba Wallace has an ownership interest in Richard Petty Motorsports and an offer to extend the percentage of that ownership if he signs for 2021 and after. So we'll see what transpires with that number 43 and a few other teams, still loose ends. What's going to transpire with the number 13 Germain Racing car that Ty Dillon is driving, sponsored by Geico. That has not been announced that it will continue it. It's not been announced that it's going to be sold or concluded. That was just kind of the talk this week of one of the other teams with some contract issues yet to be publicly disclosed as to what will transpire. Trevor Bayne will be in the truck race this coming weekend. And Steve Phelps, the president of NASCAR, had a conference this week with a number of items to talk about. So those are your headlines here on the Bob's Racing Report. Mr. Bianchi and myself, Bob Bardas. Never mind that fake book. You can go to our website, WSMN.live. WSMN.live, and you can click on the little triangle play icon, and you will see Mr. Bianchi and I live here in the showroom at Allen Mello Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. And at the same time, you can stream 24/7 via that website.
Yes, you can. You forgot to mention that Mr. Biffle is going to be running in the truck race, too.
Ooh, let's see. Last time he showed up in a truck race, he drove for Kyle Busch Motorsports at Texas and won.
He sure did, and I think he's in a Nice Motorsports truck this time, which still good equipment. Yeah, and wouldn't be surprised if he won again. He did mention he'd love to get back to Cup racing. I don't see that happening. Young is what teams are looking for. Kind of sad to see Germain Racing kind of on the edge here, and that is a team that is largely run. In a lot of the ways, it's on the Richard Childress campus, Richard Childress Racing campus, and it is a team that's been around for a long time. They've been sponsored by the Gecko for a long time, and because I suppose all this comes together, Geico is one of the four major sponsors of NASCAR. Do they want to keep sponsoring a car when they are a prime sponsor of the Cup Series itself? Because remember, we went to this multi-major sponsors with Coca-Cola, Budweiser, Xfinity, and Geico are the foursome, and it's just the Cup Series. It's not named anything. I'm surprised it's not the France Cup Series, but hey, they didn't want to do that. That's fine. So do they want to keep sponsoring a team, though Budweiser on their Busch division sponsor the 4-car? So we'll see. These reporters pick this stuff out. I don't know if that's from Pockgrass or not, but boy, he unleashes a lot of things.
Yes, he does.
Poking around in the detritus on the forest floor, so to speak. He unearths an awful lot of worms and bugs and things that he goes out and finds quite regularly.
Not just in the garage, but he's also the guy reviewing court documents and reporting on. We talked about last year about Divine, not Levine, in the 95. Divine Family Racing filing for bankruptcy. He's reviewed the DC Solar fiasco in the Xfinity Series, where the president and his wife of DC Solar ended up in federal custody and that pulled a sponsorship. So he goes that extra step to review documents that your typical journalist or reporter does not.
No, and I think those two individuals are probably staying in a federal house right now, if I'm to guess one way or the other, because they certainly can't.
They're federal quarantine, you might say?
Yeah. They certainly can't pay back all the money that they bilked people out of. So we had two races at Daytona and then a race at Gateway. The truck race was pretty good. I didn't get a chance to see it, but I was listening to it on the radio.
I will give you your Roberts Racing recap report, right? If you want the alliteration to go with the numerology report.
Wham, bam, crash.
The trucks at Gateway drives me nuts. Can we just tell people where the race is? It's New Hampshire Motor Speedway. It's Texas Motor. It's at Daytona. Gateway, that does not help me. It never does, right? When you that's the sponsorship.
Well,
no, just tell me.
No, I thought that's the name of the track, isn't it? Gateway Speedway.
Great. Tell me where it is. Put it in the title. It's Madison, Illinois.
Well, yeah, it's the gateway to the West type thing.
Yeah, which to me, I think St. Louis, Missouri.
Well,
not at Madison, Illinois.
Missouri.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's close to Missouri. What's wrong with that?
It's up the Mississippi River a ways, but yeah.
Oh, up the mighty Mississippi. No, whatever that song.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
When you end up at Lake Erie or Gitche Gumi, and I'll put on the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald if you want to.
You've gone a little too far.
I've always gone too.
Well, that's true. But
I've had judges tell me that.
It was actually the Car Shield 200 presented by CK Power.
Right, at Gateway.
At Gateway.
That tells me nothing.
It says it right here, Madison, Illinois.
Right,
see?
but you have to go that extra step. Like I like New Hampshire Motor Speedway, Texas Motor Speedway, Daytona International Speedway.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Daytona Motor Speedway doesn't tell you where it is.
Daytona International Speedway?
Well,
sure
what
does.
if you
That's
don't know where
Daytona.
Daytona is?
Right. I don't know where Gateway is because there is no Gateway other than the arch in St. Louis, Missouri.
Well, how about ISM Speedway?
Yeah, still don't. It's Phoenix. It's Phoenix.
Well, to those of us around, it's Phoenix.
Okay.
You just never know what you're going to get.
So Gateway at Madison, Illinois is 1.25 miles. This is a Darlington-shaped raceway with the banking of New Hampshire. So it's larger than New Hampshire, which is the 1 mile track. So here we're 1.25. Darlington being 1.3 and change. New Hampshire banking, as we know, we always say it's non-existent. It's a flat track till you walk on it. It's a little bit of banking, but 9 to 11 degrees is what New Hampshire has, and that's what Gateway has. Ross Chastain won this in 2019. We're going to go 160 laps for a total of 200 miles. Zane Smith in the GMS Chevrolet number 21 with the 21-year-old on the pole. Here we go into Stage 1 and Stage 2, dominated by Todd Gilliland in the number 38 Ford, 20-year-old son of David Gilliland, who used to drive in the Cup Series. So where does Zane Smith show up in Stage 1 after being on the pole? Well, he's second. Stage 2, Gilliland wins it again. Eckes in the number 18 Chevrolet, number 18 Toyota for Kyle Busch Motorsports is in second. Zane Smith is in third. And then we have a problem. Eckes broke a drive shaft. The 38 blows the tire. Gilliland goes into the wall. And we have Etch-a-Sketch again. So now Sheldon Creed in the number 2 Chevrolet goes to victory lane.
Well, yes, but how did Sheldon Creed get there?
I was going to let you break that down. I'm just doing the quick little race recap. Moffitt finishes second, Austin Hill in third, Sam Mayer, 17-year-old in fourth, Stuart Friesen in fifth. Gilliland finishes 22nd after leading 70 laps. But Sheldon Creed in the Triple Truck Challenge gets a second win in that challenge. And third win of the season in 44 starts, or career starts. So he gets an extra $100,000 added on to the $50,000 he won before as part of the Triple Truck Challenge.
Or at least the team does.
The team gets it, right. Well, they promote it that it goes to the driver, and we all know there's lawyers and there's fine print.
Lawyers and fine print.
Move the decimal. Yeah.
Looks like hemorrhoid cream and something else that hurts. So, anyways, of course, Sheldon Creed gets into one of the corners a little bit too feisty and ends up bumping Todd Gilliland and sends him into the wall. And that did that take him out? I think I can't remember if he was totally out. Let me see. Let me look down at the bottom of the.
Gilliland ended up blowing a tire. And
right. So and that was the
culmination.
That was a culmination. So he rubbed the tire, and obviously the body work will get on the tire, and then you blow the tire, and then you meet Mr. Wall really quick. And I thought it was very interesting. Todd Gilliland was interviewed. They have to go to the care center, and then there's always somebody out there with a microphone when he comes out, and he. Not happy about it, but I think these guys understand the game, if you want to call it that, more than the fans do, because he said, I've done that before.
Yeah.
Because people want to point fingers. Oh, you're all to blame. You're the one that took him out at Sheldon Creed. And when Sheldon was interviewed at the victory, wherever they were celebrating the victory. He said, I think he said the words, "I don't race like that," but of course you race like that. You were going for position, and you lost the truck, and it got away from you, and it went up the track, and it hit the guy you were trying to pass. That happens. You didn't do it on purpose, but you know when you take a calculated risk, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's a lot like we saw Tyler Reddick try to get in front of
the 18 of Kyle Busch.
Yeah, Kyle Busch, and it didn't work too well that time. And this is another instance in where we famously say it was a racing incident. Yeah, that's what happens in racing when you're out there driving a motor vehicle at the very edge of its handling, at the very edge of its capability to turn. Crap's going to happen.
You have in the business world the ROI, the return on investment,
right.
And in NASCAR you have the RI, the racing incident. So sometimes your RI depletes or impacts your ROI. Racing incident does not always benefit your return on investment.
It really doesn't, and fans just a lot of the times can't recognize that. They want to post the blame to somebody. We can get in. We've got a big one that happened in the Xfinity Series, but I can see both sides of that. And again, these are really young guys. If for somebody that's closer to 60 than anything else, I look at these
the 17, 18, 19-year-olds running the race. Yeah, I
look at these young kids and they come out, well, that happens before. That happens. It's happened. They don't like it, but they accept it. Now, I know when I'm just racing a little toy car on a slot car track, how kind of angry I get when somebody especially when you get into a corner where somebody is very slow, you're just going to go past them. They're in slots, folks, okay? Now, some tracks are routed so the slots come together. You can't get through there. And you gauge, as you're a slower racer, you gauge where they're going, and we've seen this. That's why we wanted to persecute poor Quinn Huff a few weeks ago, because he got into somebody's way and didn't do whatever they feel he should have done, so he was the worst thing on planet Earth for about a week until somebody else did a bonehead move the next race. But when you slow down and almost come to a stop in a corner, when you expect that flow, it's aggravating, and then you're into the fence. And, of course, the slot cars, you just pick them up, you put them on the track. It doesn't cost you tens of thousands of dollars to repair the darn thing. But it's still frustrating, and sometimes you especially with newer racers or racers that are very, very intense, and there's always a couple of them in the crowd. When you're racing, they just take this way too serious. Look, dude, you got $40 or $60 invested in that little car, and we're playing with toy cars, and we're middle-aged men. This isn't $1 million contract. It doesn't mean you can't put food on the table. You're playing with a toy car, okay? Chill out, Francis. Yeah. But when I see what's on the line for these guys sometimes, and I see what happens, and boy, how can they just walk out there and, well, yeah, it happens. I've done that before, and they handle it very well. Sometimes they don't, and I certainly can't fault them for doing that. The Truck Series, I feel you have a real wide divergence of equipment out there. You have some stuff that's pretty darn good and pretty fast, and then you have stuff that not necessarily their fault. I take Jennifer Jo Cobb. Her equipment she just doesn't have the money. She's a good race car driver. Is she top tier? No. Her equipment is all hand-me-down stuff, without a doubt. But there she is every week out there campaigning that truck as best as she can. And there's a lot of teams like that, and they take a lot of criticism while they're just in the way, or they end up affecting the race in an adverse manner. Yep, that's racing. That is racing, and it's not as much as it used to be. All them old dudes out there, well, racing used to be a lot better, and we've heard that 1,000 times out there. Oh, it all used to be better. Let's go back and pick a race. Let's go back and look at the statistics for that race. Chances are you're going to find the winner won by 2 or 3 laps, or maybe the first 2 cars were 10 laps ahead of the rest of the field.
No nail-biting finish, no photo finish. Yeah.
Well, remember that classic finish at Daytona in 1975? The 2 cars crash. You got the boys out there fighting on the corner.
You had time to film the fight before the third-place car comes around across the finish line.
They couldn't even find Richard Petty's car. They're all searching around. Where's
the
Richard?
blue car? Put it on the. That's the wrong blue car.
That's the wrong car. Yeah, because there was 2 cars painted very similar. There were 2 Petty cars out there at that time. Yeah. You have a much more competitive field now than you've ever had before, and that makes for a lot closer racing. Yes, we do some things that enhance that too. We have waiver rounds. We have when there's a caution flag, we have the first car 1 lap down, 2 laps down, whatever, that gets a free trip around for a lap. If they happen to be multiple laps down, then they just get 1 back. There are certain things that we do that eliminate junky cars out on the track. Let's face it, once some of these cars get so beat up they can't go back out on the track because they can't meet minimum speed, they're done. If you take the car into the garage after damage, you're done. There are certain rules in place that take away some of that spirit of, I'm going to finish no matter what. Well,
you're putting oil on the track and you're moving up the shell.
It's not really.
And you're creating a yard sale down the backstretch.
So some of the statistics of the number of cars that finish on the lead lap is a little bit skewed. Maybe 4 or 5 cars that probably normally would not be on the lead lap are now, but you have a good bulk of cars in the Cup, the Xfinity, and the Truck Series that deserve to be where they are, and that's what makes the racing closer. You don't follow Formula One. I don't really follow Formula One, but I do know that Mr. Hamilton's won just about every race, and they love it. I shouldn't say American Formula One racers love it as much, but over in Europe, they think that's wonderful. If one team has won just about every race, the Mercedes team, and Hamilton has won a bulk of those, they think that's wonderful. When Schumacher was out there winning everything, they think that's wonderful because that's their ethos, that's their genre. I suppose when you've been ruled by kings and
I was going to say it was hail to the king.
Yeah, it's kings and queens. You were ruled by that all your life. Those that didn't like it came over here.
Hail to the King is an Avenged Sevenfold song. Kings and Queens is the Aerosmith song, and you can hear those on Thursday during my metal show.
On Thursday, except when we're throwing metal at wooden targets.
Correct.
At the axe throwing that we'll
Axe
be
play.
at.
We'll
Axe
be at
play in
142
Hudson.
Lowell Road in Hudson.
Right
Mr.
across
Bianchi
from Fox Hollow. We killed all the foxes and we built houses for Fox Hollow.
Well, Mr. Bianchi and I will be fielding Team Bob's Racing Report versus Team George, and Team George is a solo team because he's already
King George.
He's already smack talking that he doesn't need a partner to beat the 2 of us.
Well, that's
so
good.
We'll see. And
that's good.
Team Girl Power will be in effect tomorrow.
Yep.
And we've got a few other law enforcement officers, a couple of prosecutors, and probably a couple of firefighters coming in to field some teams. And WSMN will be broadcasting live from 4 to 7 tomorrow. On Thursday, September 3rd, from 4 to 7.
It should be an adventure. We have no idea what we're going to talk about, but we're going to talk about hatchets and little mini axes that we throw at boards. As we talked at the start of last hour, I did do a little research. I don't want to go in there totally blind. It's kind of neat.
I'm going blind.
You are, because you're off the grid type of guy. So,
yep, I'm an off the grid. Yeah, OTG, that's me. Not the OG. I'm the OTG.
Of course, King George has been down there every afternoon practicing, so yeah, maybe he will beat us, but maybe not. Now, I must admit, growing up, I did a lot of wood splitting. we went through 14 cord of wood a winter in our big old farmhouse that didn't have a hell of a lot of insulation and had a stove called a hub oak. My grandfather had procured it from an old railroad station. When I was a young lad of 10 or 12, I could get in the thing. It was huge, but it ate wood like a pit bull on a T-bone steak, and it went through a lot of wood, but kept the house nice and warm. So I've done a lot of axe work, but I haven't done a lot of hatchet work. So we'll see. It'll be fun. And anybody else, it's good exercise. It's just another fun thing. In our society, I think we get a little in the rural area or in the urban areas, we get a little bit more petrified of axes and guns and things like that. There's some real nice shooting ranges around here, and quite honestly, I don't know anybody who has ever gone out and shot pistols or rifles that didn't have a good time with it. And it's the same way with people who are very anti-racing, so to speak. Oh, yeah, racing, it's just going around in circles. Okay, why don't you come to an event? And it's interesting. There's a saying that we have an awful hard time getting you to the first one, but we don't have a very hard time getting you to the next one.
Yep.
And when you're actually there in person, and I think it's like that with almost any sporting event, when you can see things that you can see things that they're not showing you on TV. Not that it's good, bad, or indifference. It's you can only show so much on a television, and when you watch racing on TV, you do not in any way, shape, or form have that sense of speed that you do when you're at the track. And we've suggested many, many times here, go to a race on Saturday, or this in a week from Saturday, they're going to have the modified race and some other races at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. I don't know their ticket policy. Is this strictly an online thing again? I should have done my research here, and I didn't. But the Cup race was online ticket only, and then you have your ticket on your phone, and then they scan it. But you go up to that race, and you can walk alongside the track. They have they have fencing there now, actually.
Yes.
It's fencing. So it is probably 8 feet away from the wall. So a car, and generally the cars travel pretty close to the wall. So within 10, maybe 15 feet, a car can go by you at 150, 170 miles an hour. And if you think you get some pucker factor being out on the highway when somebody drives by you at 50, try 3 times that. And you will realize that, wow, this is something special. It is something that not everybody can do. Oh, yeah, you can take your Honda Accord at 115 miles an hour on Interstate 93. Of course, you'll have to call Mr. Bardis' law office after that, because you will be going to the Hooskow. A young lad from, I believe, Massachusetts, big surprise, bought a little trip to the Hooskow this last weekend as he was driving his a Honda Accord at 118 miles an hour, and I can't remember if it was the Everett Turnpike or if it was 93, but holy moly, that's fast in a Honda Accord. And I'd be almost willing to put a bet down that he had perfect tires, ball joints, brakes were in good tune condition.
Right out of inspection.
Oh, yeah.
Out of inspection.
I'm sure that car was in tip-top condition to be going that speed, too. Oy, oy, oy. Yep. It's that theory that I have when you go to a short track. And, of course, we all know the stylized 3 that Richard Childress Racing uses, and it was on the car that Dale Earnhardt drove, and now it's on the car that Austin Dillon drives. And it almost never fails. You see a car with that stylized 3 on it in the different divisions, and it's always the worst car on the track. Almost never fails. When you go to Thunder Road, you've got a late model, you have a Tiger Sportsman car, you have their street stocks, which are the fox-bodied Mustangs and the Cavaliers. There's always somebody there with a 3 car, and it just absolutely sucks. It's just funny. It's just one of those things. So getting back on track here where I wander like a madman. Now, you'll enjoy this. They've changed the qualifying criteria. Of course, we don't have physical qualifying, and this
bothers me. Go ahead.
It's a metric or metric. Let me see.
Does it star Keanu Reeves?
No, actually, and no slow motion bullets either.
Yeah.
Yeah. So qualifying is a total number based on the previous event. 15% of the fastest lap time position, 25% of the driver's final race finish position, which is 25% of the owner's final race position, and 35% of the owner points position. Any ties will be broken by the rule book.
Wah, 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 wah,
Yeah.
wah,
So
wah,
in,
wah, wah, wah.
so in other words, the better you finish, the faster you go, and the better you are in points, chances are you're going to be starting closer to the front. And Chase Elliott is starting on the pole position for Darlington. Well, he came in second at Daytona. He's fairly high in the points, and I don't know where he was fastest lap time, but bottom line is he's doing pretty good.
I struggle with this. I don't like the new qualifying point algorithm matrix something or other.
Well, did you like the random draw?
Yes.
You did. Okay.
And here's my thought. So not just as Bob Bartis, NASCAR Kool-Aid drinking 4-decade fan, from that sense, I also take the analysis of being the 4-decade NASCAR Kool-Aid drinking media guy that says we need to advance the sport, we need to explain the sport, and we need to bring in the casual listener to the sport. So the easiest way that we can do so and to make a better product, right, we've talked stage rate. We can go down that whole road. I won't go down the road. Here's how qualifying has been and why I think this is not going to work, right? So as we always have seen, the cars went out one lap at a time, or an individual car made X number of laps, 1 lap, 2 lap, whatever it was, and after 40 some odd cars, the fastest guy got the pole, and the next fastest guy started second, and the third fastest guy started right, and then and you went down. So as a casual fan and or as a broadcaster, you could watch qualifying front to back, know who finished where, or in qualifying, meaning so then who's going to start where. You can see it; it's tangible. They put it up on the billboard. They put it on TV.
Sure, it wasn't orange, not tangerine.
Yes. Yeah. Then because of weather, inclement weather, NASCAR has a backup plan that says we're just going to line up the field based on owner points or driver points.
Owner
points. So the casual fan says, oh, well, that guy's leading the points, so he gets to start because there was no qualifying. There were no cars on the track due to the rain. You can go to the internet and cross-check where the points are. And go.
Yeah, that's fairly easy to check.
And then we got to COVID, and we got to the situation where they said we're going to take, what was it, the top 12 positions, and then 13 through 24 and 25 through 40, and basically we'll pull ping pong balls or bingo balls or random draw, whatever it was. But if it was for 1 through 12, and those top 12 in points will each have a designated ping pong ball or bingo ball, and 1 through 12 will be set. Can't do any worse than 12th. Can't do any better than first, and then 13 through 12. And we went through that. And if you really, really, really wanted to, you could go on to the NASCAR.com website and watch them pull the bingo ball out of the hat. And we have seen that as a precedent. Being the lawyer, I like precedent. We've seen that in the Busch Clash, the Bud Shootout, the whatever we want to call it back in the day, where prior to the Daytona 500, you would have the exhibition race to kick off speed weeks and hype everything up. And I recall seeing the drivers go up, and it was sponsored by, when it was Budweiser, there would be red Budweiser bottles, and each driver would go up and pull a bottle, pop the top, reach in and pull out the paper slip, and it would have a number of 1 through wherever as to who was going to start where. So you had a little bit of fan interaction by, if you really want to watch qualifying, the old-fashioned way by speed, you could do it. If you wanted to watch the bingo balls or the bottles being pulled, you could do that. And you can cross-reference or check how that lineup is set by looking at owner points or anything else that's out there. To me, the casual fan has no clue how qualifying is now being set, because this guy, this broadcaster, has no clue how to do the calculation of 50% based on this, 35% based on that, 15%. Well, now I got to go back and look up the last fastest lap of this guy and attribute 15% to this and do that. You have made it too complicated for something that, and again, this is where I get back and said the easiest way to do it was the random draw, or set it by points, or let's just invert the fielders. Now you've got this huge matrix in, and it's just, and I'm not, look, we've talked about I'm not one for change. I'm not, well, it's got to be the way forever. I'm not opposed to some of that
you're
change.
You're over the hill, aren't you? Yeah.
I am now. But part of that, but I'm
so
over,
you think you're going to live to 100, huh?
I'm over the hill and on the soapbox, so look out. Yeah. But just part of me says, if I'm trying to introduce the casual fan now to NASCAR when other stick and ball sports are not playing because of COVID, and who's going to jump in and say, hey, how come my guy finished here or did that, or where he's starting, or I can't explain that to the casual fan in 2 minutes or less, which to me means that's a tough product to sell, and a tough product to sell is a tough product to sell.
Well,
yeah. And we're back to return on investment. Yeah.
I'll only counter that with the fact that when you talk about the casual fan, I don't think the casual fan really gives a darn where anybody starts.
All right, how about the intermediate
or
fan?
how they get there? Well, you're right. You have that middle fan. And we go back to my thirds thing. You have a third that they're so involved in it, they understand it.
And let's put Trisha and Mrs. Bianchi in that intermediate. You and I eat, sleep, and die this.
Well, you're right, but she really doesn't care.
No, that's why I'm saying
she doesn't really care where anybody starts.
She's in the intermediate fan. But if she says, hey, it rained on Friday, she knows as the intermediate fan, they're going to line up by owner's points. She knows that.
Well, you're right, but I think we're just in such a unique situation here now that there is nothing, absolutely nothing that tells me we are not going to go back to traditional qualifying when God knows when this whole foolishness
let me
ends.
put my lawyer hat on and say, then why, Your Honor, are we going through this entire matrix to run it when the bingo balls worked for the last 10 races?
Oh, I know why.
Poor K.
Because the 10 car, Eric Almirola, had, let's call it just dumb luck. Maybe he had bacon grease on the other balls or whatnot. He ended up starting on the pole position and
3 times?
Out of what was there, 10 there? Oh, I just got a message from home. She says, I care about a couple of the drivers. She does.
Thank you, Mrs. Bianchi.
She does, and she gets awful
Case
angry.
Proven, Your Honor.
Yes.
Case proven.
And she gets awful angry when one of those drivers takes out one of the drivers she likes. Then the claws come out. Meow. Yeah. She's not very forgiving to somebody that might be in a FedEx car. So what? But
not delivering happiness to the Bianchi household, is he?
No. Oh golly, I'll give them credit. I did talk to the gentleman that delivered a package on Saturday when I was underneath the Corvette having. No, it was Sunday because it was sunny out. I was underneath the Corvette. That's what I was doing during the truck race, putting new shocks in the Corvette. Hey, they had 120,000 miles on them. I just thought I'd replace them for the fun of it. Yeah, what the
details.
Heck. And of course, the FedEx truck shows up, and I talked to the nice gentleman, and I said, "Gee, are you a regular driver here?" No. But I am I guess he's the local. He's the kind of guy that has the authority.
He's not the guy, but knows the guy.
Well, no, he has the authority of the delivery in the area, and FedEx and UPS work that way. Sometimes their middle managers will be out on the road, and especially on a Sunday, because we can't find anybody else that wants to work. I told them about the incidents of packages being left out on the driveway. I told them about an incident of some very nice plexi display cases being left in the middle of a field at the end of a driveway. Somebody I happen to know in the Bat Cave. And I said, it's just unacceptable, and especially when it's inclement weather and they leave the things out in the front of my garage doors when our entryway is recessed and it's dry. And he says, well, I agree with you. I would not tolerate that at all and make note of it. So anyway, whether it comes to anything, I don't know. But when Eric Almirola was starting up front, you had some other drivers that Christopher Bell's a perfect example, got off to a bad start, didn't have some very – so they were just constantly caught in that deadly loop of being in that middle section of the race where a lot of bad stuff happens. And it's hard to climb out of that when you constantly, of no fault of your own, outside of not running very good, get thrown back into it. And again, this is just a special – because of
let me go back to
quarantine.
last hour.
So, yeah.
Them's the breaks. Sorry, Jimmy Johnson, you don't get to run for your 8th championship because you didn't perform over the last 25 races. We're not going to give you a free pass on race 26. So if somebody's in the top 12 in points, great, let them start in the top 12 versus the ping pong balls. And if you're in the middle of the pack, you could start in the middle of the pack.
Mm-hmm.
But I just find now that we're going to get the top 3 or 4 are going to remain the top 3 or 4, and you're going to even narrow those categories from there. Because we saw Kevin Harvick or Denny Hamlin starting up front the last 3 or 4 races because they won the last couple of races. And this weird matrix, I'm like...
To the victor go the spoils.
Well, right, and then you kind of look back and say, well, I think I saw a little bit on the Twitter social media as to who was coming in and said, well, wait a minute, we've got... Justin Haley won the last race and he got a stage win and something or other. And so how come Zane Smith or Gilliland isn't starting on the pole for this coming weekend's race? Because again, it's too complicated. It's too complicated.
Yeah, I guess I have a tendency just to kind of overlook that. They'll tell me ahead of time. At least a few days ahead of time.
Well, see, you're taking the approach I take with playoff points.
Right.
I don't care how you get there. Just tell me who's in the playoffs.
Well, there you go.
Now
yeah.
I kind of want to see who's qualifying where, but don't make me do math.
And though realizing that the 16 playoff drivers right now are segregated away from the other. So, and this is something that it's interesting when you listen to NASCAR radio, 24-hour day NASCAR radio for the last, I don't know, probably a good 18 years since that channel started. And when you listen to that all the time, you kind of judge where a lot of the call-in fans, and granted, people have a tendency to leave comments, call in when they're disgruntled. Mm-hmm. That's why Mr. Moody came up with the gruntled fan.
Yes.
They call in when they're happy. So there was a certain segment of the fandom that wanted some of the stuff that's happening now, and quite frankly, a lot in the media were poo-pooing it, or they were saying, no, we can't do that, or we shouldn't do that. And one of them was some of the qualifying things we see now. Some of it was midweek racing, double racing, a lot of different things. I'm in favor of all that.
Yeah. So again, I don't want to be branded as a guy who doesn't go for change just because I'm getting old and being a grumpy old man and killing it type thing. I'm good with no practice. I'm good with no qualifying. I'm good with the double headers. I'm good with letting the drivers fly in on Sunday. Whether they need to do a meet and greet with their sponsors, that's up to them, whether that's COVID related or not. Let them fly back out. We don't need to see 17 hours of cars on the track from Thursday night through Monday to make stuff happen. I'm good with extending this season. I know the drivers don't like that, but as Chocolate Myers was saying, they work for a living. If we start doubling up and skipping a few of these open weekends and we shorten the races and the drivers can show up on a Friday night or Saturday and be home Monday through Thursday night, we can run 40 weeks out of the year.
Yeah, and it was interesting that there was talk this week when what's his name here, President Phelps, Steve Phelps had talked about
we ought to cover some of that. Yeah.
Some new locations, talked about some other topics. They're still up in the air on the 21 schedule because, quite frankly, we don't know what's happening, and I'll call it politically. I really think that we've left the realm of health and safety, and we're into a very strong realm of political stuff right now. Because from what I've read, there doesn't seem to be a preponderance of the evidence that sporting events, Sturgis, New Hampshire Motorcycle Weekend has been, as one side of the aisle has said, super spreaders of the virus, yet we have people protesting in the streets. We have peaceful protests. We have all these gatherings because that's what they believe in. That's okay. Those aren't super spreaders of the virus. Of course not, because it's what we want. So we're living in a political atmosphere right now that NASCAR as a sanctioning body can't really come out and say, well, the Daytona 500 is going to be on the 14th, and it's going to be just like it always has. We're going to allow fans in the infield. We're going to have all of that stuff that goes along with a NASCAR event because, quite frankly, they don't know if they're going to be able to do that. They're still, to some degree, up in the air about the Las Vegas race, which is coming up in a few weeks. Are we going to be allowed to race there? Wow,
and that's gonna be determined by the governor of that particular state and the restrictions, the same way that every other state and track that we've had to deal with. So right now it's up in the air.
You've opened up casinos, because those are dollars. Now, you can't tell me that having a race isn't dollars either, and showcases your area. That's why that race left New Hampshire Motor Speedway and went to Las Vegas, because those people paid a lot of money to get that date. They wanted more attention to their area and more attention or more people coming to that area.
So as of right now, we do not have word on Las Vegas fans in attendance, and as of right now, we do not have the schedule for 2021 other than Steve Phelps has said Daytona 500 will happen on Valentine's Day of 2021. Whether there's fans, no fans, weather permitting is the only condition precedent right now that is in place.
That's normal anyway.
And then he did say that we expect to see some one-day events where drivers fly in, race, and fly out. We expect to see some double headers where the Cup guys race on both Saturday and Sunday, double points weekend. The Daytona Oval track will remain the opener and presumably the conclusion of the regular season, and that the Daytona Road Course will be used as part of Speed Week in February for the Busch Clash. Whether it is a points run race later in the season, yet to be determined. We'll have to see if COVID still exists, if that's a makeup race, or if there will be a race that's added. There was some talk by President Steve Phelps that top-level executives, sponsors, and media personnel will not be allowed in the Garage, Victory Lane, Media Center infield until a vaccine is widely available. And there was an asterisk next to that speech that said, some other measures come up, but right now we do not see Mr. Bianchi and myself in any time soon in a media center or in a Victory Lane or any other members of the media doing the exact same thing. Whereas right now, under the discussion with Steve Phelps this week, he's waiting to see a vaccine in place.
Well, and another interesting thing is, of course, we know Nashville is going to be on the schedule. That's a new it's a new track for the Cup Series. Other divisions have run there,
like Daytona Road Course.
Correct.
The DRC. Yeah. I did not watch the DNC. I did not watch the RNC. I watched the DRC, Daytona Road Course. And there were as many turns and flip-flops there as in those other two.
Well, that's for sure. Well, so we knew we have at least one new track, and they said some other new locales might be pending, which is kind of interesting considering they took Iowa off the Xfinity. Hey, before we run out of time here, I did want to talk about the Ross Chastain incident. So, Xfinity race.
I'll do the quick recap. 100 laps on the pole. Chase Briscoe starting outside. P2 position. Ross Chastain. Justin Haley wins stage 1. Ross Chastain finishes second. That's going to come back in a second. Brandon Jones crashed. Had the big one. Took out the 7, 8, and 9 if we're counting those numerology points. Stage 2. A.J. Allmendinger, teammate to Justin Haley, wins stage 2. Ross Chastain finishes second. Last lap, A.J. Allmendinger and Chastain get into a little problem. Mr. Bianchi will recap that. Justin Haley, the 21-year-old winner, second win of the season because he previously won Talladega, only led 9 laps. 9 top 10s in 13 races for Justin Haley. So 9 top 10s for the number 11. Gray Galding finished in second, ties his career best. Also referencing back to the Talladega race. Chase Briscoe in third, Riley Herbst in fourth, Harrison Burton in fifth. So where does Mr. Chastain? Well, let's do the Notrobardus numerology. If you start second, you finish second in stage 1, and you finish second in stage 2, guess what you get? 2 + 2 + 2 = 6. He finished sixth.
Ay, ay, ay. Well, as we see, as we see in the super speedway racing, there's a lot of shifting around, and you're going from the top line to the bottom line to try to get into that line that's moving faster, and they call it blocking. I call it just trying to catch that current and go. So now we're at the last corner before the checkered flag. This is where it all comes down, and we see this in the super speedways. Ross Chastain, we know, is going to go for anything. If there's a sliver of daylight, he's going to try to drive his car through it. And A.J. Allmendinger kind of went high because he thought because you can see the cars.
Yep.
Ross kind of goes up a little bit. A.J. follows him up. He wants to be in front of him, right? So that leaves that bottom. You can't go below the yellow line down on the bottom.
Out of bounds.
Yeah, that's out of bounds, and you'll get penalized. But there is a little bit of room. He can fit that car between these other cars and going 200 miles an hour. He can fit down there, and he gets a fender up and underneath A.J. Allmendinger, and A.J. Allmendinger comes down. Now, to me, it's a racing incident. I don't throw mud at Ross Chastain for trying that. Danielle Trotta, actually, she just took him on the carpet on Monday for doing that.
I got some text messages from Kevin Terigny relative to that incident.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that just get so upset because of what Ross did. And A.J. Allmendinger was very polite. He was a little bit contrite because he was upset he got taken out, and this was a teammate. They're all in the same – they all come from the same stable, and it shouldn't have happened. And yet we conveniently forget what A.J. Allmendinger did 2 weeks earlier at the road course at Daytona and did pretty much the same exact thing. He drove hard into the corner. He hit Justin Allgaier, and Justin Allgaier spun, was still able to finish a race, but certainly didn't have the chance to win because of what A.J. Allmendinger did. And A.J. said, yep, I got in there too hot. I tried too hard. It was the last lap. Ross Chastain did the same exact thing. You left me a little bit of daylight, and, of course, Ross didn't say this, and Ross said, I didn't mean to take him out. It wasn't my intention. I was trying to go for the win, and that's what these guys do, and that's what so many fans call, we want them to drive at the top of their abilities. We want them to go 100%. We want them to go as fast as they can go and try for that win.
Swap paint. Boys have at it. All the catchphrases that NASCAR
and then when it happens, we want to kick them.
Shame on you. Shame on you. Tar and feather.
Evil driver, you. So to me, it was a crock of horse phooey to sit there and ridicule Ross Chastain for what he did to his stablemate, A.J. Allmendinger. A.J. Allmendinger had done it to somebody else 2 weeks earlier. So it's a little hypocritical, and I know we're used to politics being that way, but that's human nature, and I just can't see any criticism in both of those incidents, but they're very much the same, and quite frankly, A.J. Allmendinger doesn't have a lot of leeway to complain about what happened. I see it as really kind of a split blame there. One wanted to try to block a little bit, and then one tried to block a little bit more, and one got underneath, saw a little daylight, and he was going to take it. So...
And we piled them up and called
messy
trucks at that point. So,
but he did finish.
They are throwing the checkered flag here on the Bob's Racing Report. We have reached the top of the hour. Again, today's show will be replayed on Saturday. And if you're listening to Saturday's replay, get ready for the Xfinity race at Darlington, the Lady in Black, the track too tough to tame. Then you will see the Kentucky Derby Saturday night. We'll do a little recap on that because that is racing and it is running fast, turning left. So Mr. Bianchi and I will be covering that. Also get ready for the doubleheader on Sunday of Labor Day weekend here with the truck race at lunchtime and the cup race at dinner time under the lights. We will be back here next week. As always, thank you to Alan Mello Dodge. Thank you to SlotCarCorner.com. And please support the Northeast Motorsports Museum at Loudon. And for Mr. Bianchi, I'm Bob Bardis. This has been your Racing Report. Until next time, keep it in gear. Hold your line. We'll meet you in Victory Lane. We'll see you next week on WSMN 1590, 95.3 FM.
WSMN 1590, WSMN 95.3 FM Nashua. Listen, watch, and stream at WSMN1590.com.